The moment everything changed. Obsolete. That's what they called me. I knew they were planning my corporate funeral the moment I saw Dylan snapping his fingers at the interns like he was conducting some twisted Silicon Valley orchestra. Tuesday morning, 8:47 a.m. sharp. The guy strutted in wearing those crisp white Adidas and clutching a venti Starbucks like it was his scepter of authority, then planted himself in our conference room like he'd invented PowerPoint itself. First words out of his mouth, "Vera, we need to discuss your framework. It feels antiquated." Antiquated, huh? My antiquated code had kept Morrison Tech running smoother than a Tesla on autopilot for 12 solid years. 12 years of flawless deployments, seamless integrations, and a digital backbone so rock-solid it could survive a Category 5 hurricane of corporate egos. Which, surprise, it was about to face. Dylan rambled for 40 minutes about cloud-native synergy and AI-driven scalability, buzzwords he'd probably memorized from a Forbes article during his morning bathroom break. Meanwhile, I sat there nodding like a dashboard bobblehead, not because I agreed, but because I was studying him. Cataloging every condescending smirk, every passive-aggressive compliment like, "You've really kept the lights on here, Vera." Impressive for someone who learned to code when floppy disks were still a thing. For the record, I didn't learn to code in the Stone Age. I just don't believe that switching frameworks every fiscal quarter makes you a visionary. Sometimes it just makes you a chaos agent with commitment issues. About 15 minutes into his second vision statement, I knew the axe was already falling. They weren't asking me to evolve, they were planning to euthanize me and feed my blueprints to those golden retriever consultants in matching hoodies they'd hired last month. That's when I did it. While Dylan droned on about eliminating technical debt through strategic redundancy, I quietly alt-tabbed behind my VPN and dragged a fresh PDF into a folder labeled IP Protection, Final Documentation. The timestamp read 9:23 a.m., certified and sealed. Let me put this in perspective. If my system was antiquated, Dylan had just taken a perfectly good Mustang, slapped some LED strips on it, and tried to call it his custom sports car. But here's the beautiful irony. What Dylan didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd been planning for this moment since day one. Every structural innovation I'd built, every elegant solution I'd crafted, was filed under my own LLC. Blackstone Development Systems. Cute name, right? Never mentioned it at company happy hours. While Dylan postured like Steve Jobs with a marketing degree, I was quietly documenting everything. Every Slack thread where I'd proposed better solutions and been ignored. Every outdated directive they'd forced me to implement. Every LinkedIn post Dylan would later make bragging about revolutionary new architecture that still bore my fingerprints like DNA evidence. This wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was insurance. And baby, my premiums were paid in full. Dylan didn't even have the spine to look me in the eye when he delivered the killing blow. "We're pivoting toward more agile skill sets," he muttered, flipping through his presentation like he was browsing a Williams-Sonoma catalog. I was halfway through explaining the disaster recovery protocols I'd held together with midnight patches and pure determination when he raised that patronizing hand, palm up, smile faker than a reality TV confession, and said, "Let's take this offline, Vera." Translation: Shut up, dinosaur. You've served your purpose. I sat there in that strategy meeting, watching my own roadmap spread across the table like roadkill, while they all nodded along to Dylan's keynote word salad. Elastic infrastructure, machine learning integration, decoupled environments. Not one of them realized he was recycling my old architecture like a kindergarten art project made of glitter and desperation. I stayed quiet. That's always been my superpower. Quiet gives people enough rope to hang themselves, and hang they did. The real sucker punch came 3 days later. Email from HR with the subject line "Career Transition Discussion." Might as well have called it "We're smiling while we stab you." They'd booked me in a beige conference room that smelled like industrial carpet and broken dreams. 2 HR representatives I'd never seen before sat there with folders aligned like they were conducting a funeral service. One of them, I think her name was Patricia, blinked like she hadn't slept since the Obama administration. She offered me a paper cup of lukewarm water and began reading from a script about evolving organizational objectives and realigning team dynamics. Corporate speak for "you don't belong here anymore." Then came the dagger, Dylan's voice crackling through a speakerphone in the center of the table like some discount Wizard of Oz. "Vera, we genuinely appreciate everything you've built here. But as we scale toward next-generation infrastructure, We need to partner with more contemporary talent. I stared at that phone like it was a magic 8-ball about to predict my obsolescence. My jaw clenched, but my voice stayed cold and smooth as top-shelf bourbon. You'll want to get this in writing. There was a pause. Patricia blinked. Dylan coughed. Of course, he replied, probably realizing too late that I'd just flipped the chessboard without even touching it. They handed me a packet, 17 pages of HR-approved euphemisms for get lost. Severance package included. NDA included. Non-compete clause that was honestly hilarious, considering they had no clue what they were trying to protect. I thumbed through it, nodded at all the right places, signed the last page, and thanked them politely like they just offered me a discount at my own execution. Then I stood up, slipped that packet into my leather satchel, and walked out with my dignity so intact it practically echoed in the hallway. Outside, the Denver sky looked different. Or maybe it was me. 12 years of walking those corridors, and this was the first time my footsteps didn't feel like they belonged to someone else's ghost. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't hit up Murphy's Tavern with old coworkers or post some cryptic LinkedIn status about new adventures ahead. I went home to my Capitol Hill apartment, fed my tabby cat Winston, heated up leftover Chinese takeout, and opened a bottle of Trader Joe's wine so cheap it could have doubled as paint thinner. Then I sat down at my desk, cracked my knuckles, and opened my email. To Amanda Wright, ESQ. Subject: Execute IP Documentation Protocol. Body: Termination received. IP assignments never signed. They took the bait. Please proceed per our previous discussion. V. I didn't even wait for the read receipt. Just leaned back in my chair, opened the folder labeled Blackstone Development, Full Stack IP Portfolio, and whispered to myself, let's see how agile they really are. They hired a consulting firm called Nexus Dynamics, a name that sounded like a rejected transformer. 3 weeks after my exit, Morrison Tech's lobby looked like a startup fever dream. Whiteboards everywhere, grown men drawing cloud diagrams with smiley faces, interns serving cold brew like it was communion wine. Dylan strutted through the chaos like a rooster on Red Bull, high-fiving engineers half his age and twice his IQ. They burned through money like the servers were printing it, for $0.8 million earmarked for core modernization. Half of it went to buzzword bingo, the rest to slapping a neon user interface over the same bones I'd welded together with duct tape and divine intervention. New dashboards, new icons, trendy typography, but underneath, it was still my Blackstone core architecture wearing designer clothes. I watched it all unfold from a comfortable distance. By then, I was living in my sister Kate's guest house in Boulder, wraparound porch, decent Wi-Fi, and a coffee maker that didn't hate me. Most mornings I'd sit outside in a faded Broncos hoodie, Colorado sun on my face, feet propped up on a plastic chair from Target, consulting part-time for a friend's startup and binge-watching Murder, She Wrote like it was prophecy. Jessica Fletcher never raised her voice. She just waited, observed, connected dots. So I observed too. Dylan's LinkedIn became my entertainment. One day he posted a selfie in front of a monitor displaying next-gen back-end performance metrics, grinning like he'd just invented JavaScript. Caption read, "Legacy systems are the real liability. Proud to be driving the transformation." I took a screenshot, added it to a desktop folder called Evidence of Intent, and labeled the file Dylan_confession_04 JPG. They had no idea. Blackstone Core wasn't some spaghetti code I'd hacked together during a Red Bull bender. It was a living organism, every function threading through layers of self-healing logic, every subsystem modular and documented with the paranoia of someone who knew that one day, they'd try to steal it. I hadn't built it for Morrison Tech. I'd built it because I knew this day would come. And now they had it, hook, line and sinker. That Evidence of Intent folder kept growing. Posts, Slack leaks from my old QA buddy Marcus, even photos of their new architecture sketches someone texted me. Same load balancer sequence, same custom caching protocols. My caching protocols. The thing is, I didn't feel rage anymore. Rage was inefficient. What I felt was fuel, cold, pressurized fuel ready to ignite. While Dylan played thought leader on social media, I was building something quieter. Blackstone Development Systems had been dormant for years, legally pristine, never connected to my employment by so much as a footnote. I bought a new domain, designed a sleek logo, drafted white papers I knew I'd never publish. Meanwhile, My lawyer Amanda was updating the filings. We didn't move fast, we moved precisely. The startup I consulted for offered me a full-time CTO position. I declined. I don't need titles anymore, I told them. Just the right timing. And I could smell it coming. Dylan's posts were getting more aggressive, throwing around phrases like rapid deployment cycles and industry-disrupting velocity. Translation: they were cutting corners, skipping quality assurance, prioritizing ego over compliance. I kept sipping my coffee, let that bolder sunshine hit my face, and smiled. They were about to crash headfirst into the one thing they'd underestimated most: a quiet woman with perfect documentation and a lawyer on speed dial. The beta launch was scheduled for next Tuesday. No fanfare, just an updated landing page and a flood of LinkedIn sycophants applauding Dylan's innovation, like he'd just cured digital cancer. They were about to discover that their revolutionary system was built on stolen blueprints. And I had the receipts. The beta went live on a Tuesday. No announcement, no press release, just a quietly updated homepage and an avalanche of LinkedIn brown-nosers flooding Dylan's comments like he just solved world hunger with JavaScript. The new system was supposed to be transformational, cloud-native, serverless, hyper-agile. In plain English, they'd put a Ferrari body kit on the same reliable Honda and prayed nobody noticed it still ran on my engine. I was 3 sips into a lukewarm Pike Place roast when my phone buzzed. Marcus, my old junior developer buddy and one of the last people at Morrison with an actual conscience, sent a text that read, "Holy shit, Vera. They launched your skeleton wearing a tuxedo. Check this out." Attached was a chunk of GitHub code from their new stack. I opened it, blinked twice, took another sip, and started laughing, the kind of laugh you get when you find out your ex named their dog after your favorite restaurant. It was mine. Not word for word, but the logic was identical. Variable structures mirrored my schema. Even the comments used my shorthand notation, // temp fix legacy loop. A phrase no sane engineer would invent unless they were reverse engineering my exact decisions. They hadn't refactored anything. They'd plagiarized it. I texted Marcus back, "Got access to more?" 5 minutes later, he dropped 6 more code commits into my inbox like contraband evidence. All of them built on my patented core functions. They'd even left the nested API parser I'd created for an abandoned 2019 project, the same one Dylan had sworn was too inefficient for modern infrastructure. Apparently, it grew on him. At first, it felt surreal, like watching someone parade around in your skin while insisting they'd grown it themselves. Then disbelief twisted into something darker, something more satisfied, because what I was looking at wasn't flattery. It was a signed confession. I opened the folder on my desktop labeled IP Vault. 9 patents, all filed through Blackstone Development Systems LLC. Each one timestamped and notarized with the meticulous paranoia only a woman who's been overlooked her entire career can cultivate. I zipped the folder, renamed it evidence_package_final.zip, and let it sit there on my desktop, glowing like a detonator. Most people think intellectual property theft is about code. It's not. It's about intent. The question isn't whether they stole it, it's whether they knew they were stealing it and chose to anyway. That's why I'd kept the screenshots, Dylan's posts, Marcus's Slack leaks, the meeting transcripts he'd whispered through encrypted messages. All of it layered together like archaeological evidence. Proof that they didn't accidentally stumble into infringement, they'd aimed for it with sniper precision. The beautiful part? They thought I wouldn't notice. Like I'd take my little severance check, cry into Winston's fur, and vanish into freelance irrelevance. Here's the thing about being invisible for over a decade, you learn to see everything. Every time Dylan opened his mouth in public, he hammered another nail into his own coffin. Every time his team pushed code that traced back to my architecture, they handed me more ammunition. And every time they ignored their own internal protocol about IP review, section 7.3.2, page 18, signature required, they made my case bulletproof. I still didn't pounce. Not yet. Instead, I ordered a new external drive, backed everything up 3 times, moved that evidence package to an encrypted folder with auto-expiring credentials. Then I called Amanda and said just 4 words, "It's time to dance." She didn't ask what I meant. She'd been waiting longer than I had. We agreed to let them climb higher. Deploy wider. Show the world how proud they were of their innovative system. It was like watching someone build a sandcastle on quicksand while live streaming the whole process. I closed my laptop, leaned back in my creaky desk chair, and exhaled slowly through my teeth. Let Dylan run his victory lap. Let him gloat to TechCrunch about disrupting the industry. Let the world celebrate their breakthrough. Because when the hammer dropped, it wouldn't be personal. It would be legal, precise, and absolutely devastating. The calm before the storm felt perfect. The email we sent was disgustingly polite. Amanda crafted it like we were asking about a borrowed lawnmower, not 8 proprietary methods embedded in the DNA of a multi-million-dollar product. Subject: Licensing Inquiry, Blackstone Development Methods 1 to 9 Body, hello. Hope everyone's well. Just conducting our quarterly IP audit and noticed some architectural similarities in your recently deployed system. Could you please confirm the licensing status for Protected Methods 1 to 9, originally filed under Blackstone Development Systems LLC? Thanks so much. Best regards, Amanda Wright, Legal Counsel, Blackstone Development. We CC'd Dylan, not for drama, just to let him know the weather forecast had shifted to incoming litigation with a chance of career annihilation. Then we waited. 2 days. 3. Silence. I imagined the scene, junior counsel reading it, heart rate spiking, forwarding it to senior legal, who ran a panic search for signed IP licensing agreements and found nothing but digital tumbleweeds and old Slack logs where Dylan had said, "We don't need to worry about her. She's not coming back." They didn't even reply with a brush off. Just crickets, like ignoring a gas leak because the house hadn't exploded yet. So we escalated. Amanda sent the cease and desist on a Sunday evening. It was surgical, 19 pages of legal precision. No insults, no threats, just law in its purest form. She quoted exact patent numbers, listed where each protected method appeared in their system, cited timestamps, match points, screenshots, Dylan's own bragging posts. Each section began with evidence of unauthorized use method #X. By the time we hit method 7, it read more like an autopsy report than a legal letter. I reviewed it once. Amanda reviewed it twice, printed 3 physical copies, and sent them express courier with signature confirmation. I wanted someone in that Denver high-rise to personally sign for the moment they realized they'd stepped in quicksand. Emotionally, I felt nothing. No joy, no anger, just the same cold precision I'd used building the original system. Methodical, airtight, inevitable. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was compliance. The final step was the most elegant, a plain Google Drive folder titled Litigation Preparation, with subfolders labeled Client Notification Templates, Press Statement Drafts, and Whistleblower Documentation. All organized, dated, and zipped. I had contingencies mapped out like a chess grandmaster. If they responded admitting infringement, negotiate settlement. If they ignored us again, notify their clients, partners, and hosting providers. If they publicly denied it, release Dylan's internal emails through protected whistleblower channels we'd quietly established. I wasn't planning for one outcome, I was mapping the entire battlefield. Because the moment you try to erase the architect who built your foundation, you'd better be damn sure they don't have the blueprints to your entire house. That night, I made myself a drink, nothing fancy, just Tito's and orange juice from Kate's fridge. Sat on the porch, listened to the Colorado crickets singing their Twilight Symphony, and smiled. They thought I'd taken their exit package like a kicked dog and shuffled into tech obscurity. But I didn't leave. I reloaded. And now I was watching the crosshairs lock into perfect alignment. Dylan's next LinkedIn post was going to be very, very interesting. Dylan's post hit LinkedIn at 10:23 a.m. on a Thursday. Professional headshot, whiteboard full of buzzwords, team of consultants in matching Nexus Dynamics hoodies giving him thumbs up like they just cured his imposter syndrome. Caption read, "Thrilled to announce full enterprise deployment across 23 corporate clients in record time. Legacy thinking is yesterday's problem. Welcome to tomorrow's solutions. #innovation, #leadership, #tech transformation." I stared at it for 90 seconds, then clicked Save Image as. File name, Dylan_commercial_deployment_evidence.jpg. This was it. The mask had completely slipped. They weren't beta testing anymore, they'd pushed my stolen architecture live to paying enterprise clients. Commercial use of patented technology they'd never licensed, never owned, had no legal right to deploy. I forwarded the post to Amanda with a one-line message, "They went nuclear." Her reply came 3 minutes later, "Then so do we." At 11:47 a.m., the email went out. Subject: Intellectual property violation, immediate action required. To whom it may concern. This communication serves as formal notice that your organization is actively deploying and profiting from 9 proprietary methods filed under Blackstone Development Systems LLC patents US 10, 847, 392 through US 10, 847, 400. These patents are not licensed to your entity or any affiliates. Effective immediately, all unauthorized use must cease. This includes live instances, client-facing deployments, and internal derivatives utilizing the aforementioned methods. Failure to comply will result in 1. Federal IP litigation under Title 35 of the U.S. Code, 2. Immediate notification to your clients regarding material breach, 3. Notification to hosting providers regarding prohibited use. This is your first and final warning. Regards, Amanda Wright, ESQ. No emojis, no corporate speak fluff, just a legal scalpel in email form. I didn't refresh my inbox after that. Didn't need to. I already knew the chain reaction had started. Somewhere in that Denver tower, Dylan was staring at his screen like a deer who just realized those headlights weren't slowing down. To properly twist the knife, Amanda sent hard copies to Morrison's legal department, each marked with bright red stickers, signature required, legal service urgent. Meanwhile, I brewed fresh coffee, stronger than usual, and poured it into my favorite mug, a chipped ceramic piece with a cartoon cat wearing glasses and the words "code like a boss." Then I opened my laptop and brought up the file labeled enterprise_client_list_merson_tech xlsx. Because this next part wasn't just legal warfare. This was surgical. See, when you deploy infringing technology to enterprise clients, you don't just commit theft, you make those clients co-conspirators. You turn every contract they'd proudly signed that quarter into a legal time bomb with their corporate logo on it. And I had clean timestamps, paper trails, proof of commercial deployment. Their investors would be reading that email soon. Their hosting providers, their compliance auditors. Hell, I had a draft ready for AWS escalation, citing Section 8.4 of their Cloud Services Agreement, prohibited use of unlicensed third-party intellectual property. They'd built a glass fortress and decided to throw rocks from inside it. Now every spotlight in Silicon Valley was turning their direction. But I didn't gloat. Not publicly, not even privately. Because real power doesn't scream. It sends the invoice. The first crack appeared 48 hours after Amanda's email. Marcus, still my inside source with a functioning conscience, sent me a screenshot of their #InfrastructurePanic Slack channel. Timestamped 6:47 a.m. Does anyone know what Blackstone Development Systems LLC is? Legal just flagged something about patents and takedown notices, then said it's handled, but is it? Replies flooded in like cold sweats. Wait, isn't that just Vera's old stuff? Thought we had IP clearance from procurement? What the hell does implied license mean? Are we fucked? By noon, panic had gone viral throughout Morrison Tech. Their legal team was frantically searching for documents that had never existed. Procurement was combing through old emails with search terms like Vera, Blackstone, and oh shit. By end of day, 4 enterprise clients had paused implementation pending legal clarity. A fifth, their biggest contract, a Fortune 500 financial services company, issued a formal demand to review all licensing and indemnification clauses. Translation: if you built this house on stolen blueprints, we're torching the lease. I spent that evening in Kate's garden with a glass of Colorado wine and a Bluetooth speaker playing Billie Holiday like a soundtrack to corporate Armageddon. Warm evening breeze, Winston stalking invisible prey through the tomato plants, and the only screen I looked at was the sunset over the Rockies. Amanda texted me updates in perfect, surgical bursts. 3 clients pulled. Investor rep asking about settlement options. They're begging for 30-day grace period. I replied with a thumbs-up emoji and went back to watering my basil. Meanwhile, Dylan was apparently on emergency Zoom calls looking like a man being buried alive in real time. Marcus sent me a blurry screenshot of him mid-breakdown during Monday's all-hands meeting. According to office gossip, Dylan tried to bluff his way through, "This is a misunderstanding. We're in active settlement discussions, legal speak for I'm wearing a blindfold while the building burns down around me. The beautiful part? I hadn't even pulled the trigger on client notifications yet. We were still in polite mode. Then I sent one final email. Simple, surgical precision. Subject: Internal Compliance Reference Employee Handbook Archive. Hi Dylan. Attaching the original employee handbook you personally signed in 2021. Notice Section 12.6, IP Review Protocol. All external deployments utilizing pre-existing architectural components require written legal clearance. The current handbook version in your archives remains unsigned. Hope this helps clarify things. Best, Vera. It was the gentlest knife I could twist. That clause required written legal review before launching any product that leveraged existing code architecture. Dylan hadn't just forgotten, he deliberately ignored it. From what I heard through the grapevine, the CEO called an emergency board meeting that same evening. Amanda got word from her network that investors were deeply concerned about exposure, and that insurance might not cover reckless deployment of unlicensed technology. That phrase, reckless deployment, was the beginning of the end. And I hadn't even touched the press yet. My garden had never looked more beautiful. The internal memo leaked at 7:34 a.m. on a Friday. Effective immediately, Dylan Keller will be stepping away from his duties as Chief Technology Officer pending internal review and compliance audit. No apology, no explanation, just corporate exorcism written in passive voice. Right beneath it, in smaller, shakier font, in light of ongoing IP litigation, we are temporarily reverting to previous system architecture until full compliance can be established. Problem was, there was no previous system. They'd nuked it, reformatted everything, purged backups in the name of lean DevOps. Dylan had convinced everyone that legacy equals liability, and the Nexus Dynamics consultants had happily bulldozed Blackstone core like it was haunted real estate. They'd paved over it with plagiarized code and high-fived each other for the demolition. Now, with the stolen scaffolding legally radioactive and the original system vaporized, they had nothing. I mean absolutely nothing. No billing logic, no client onboarding flow, no uptime monitoring. Their email server ran on a deprecated framework I'd personally held together with duct tape and midnight prayers, none of which they documented because Dylan thought documentation was for dinosaurs. The architecture was a skeleton, and now all the bones were gone. By noon, Morrison Tech's stock price had dropped 22%. By market close, it was down 31% and free-falling. Financial analysts flagged them as a compliance risk with unknown IP exposure. Reddit threads multiplied like weeds. Their Glassdoor rating got carpet-bombed with 1-star reviews, so fast the platform's spam filter crashed. Then came the call I'd been waiting for. Amanda forwarded the voicemail. Ms. Blackstone, this is Richard Morrison, CEO of Morrison Tech. We'd like to discuss a private settlement. Quiet resolution, no admission of wrongdoing. We're prepared to offer substantial compensation for any misunderstanding. I laughed. Not a chuckle, but a full-body wine-spitting belly laugh. Then I opened the attached settlement proposal, $750,000 and change. Not bad for a fender bender. But this wasn't whiplash in a Walmart parking lot. This was theft of my life's work, monetized and deployed without so much as a thank you card. The conditions were even more insulting. Sign an NDA covering all events from the last 18 months, release all claims in perpetuity, destroy all related evidence in my possession, and this was my favorite part, issue a public statement thanking Dylan for his visionary leadership. I nearly choked on my coffee. I told Amanda, decline. No counteroffer. Just decline. She didn't ask if I was sure. When your house is already on fire, you don't negotiate with the arsonist. You watch from the hilltop with a glass of wine and perfect documentation. By the following Monday, Morrison's CEO had gone dark. Internal messages were leaking to TechCrunch and Wired faster than Dylan could delete his LinkedIn posts. Their biggest client, that Fortune 500 financial firm, quietly pulled the plug on a $15 million deal. A reporter from the Wall Street Journal emailed Blackstone Development asking for comment. I didn't reply. The silence was louder than any headline. At that point, I wasn't even angry anymore. I was gravity. The natural force they'd pretended didn't exist while stepping off the cliff. They thought they were cutting dead weight. Turns out I was the oxygen. And now they were suffocating. The final leak hit Twitter before lunch, a single screenshot from Morrison's internal Slack, grainy and watermarked, effective immediately. We are halting all operations utilizing the Blackstone framework pending litigation resolution and third-party audit. Below that, another image, Dylan's last Slack message, posted in all caps at 3:17 a.m. before his account was deactivated. Who the hell filed those patents under an LLC? Poor bastard still didn't get it. Still thought the danger was in the code. It wasn't. It was in the paperwork. That's what always gets them, the ones who think they can sprint past compliance, who call you outdated because you actually read the legal addendums and keep your own receipts. They move fast, break things, and forget to check whether the things they're breaking belong to someone else. That morning, I sipped my coffee extra slowly. No emails, no calls. Phone still on Do Not Disturb, Billie Holiday on repeat. I opened my laptop and pulled up a fresh website, clean white background, elegant black typography, my new logo in the corner, Blackstone Development Systems, bulletproof from the first line of code. I hovered over the publish button for just a moment, smiled, then clicked. No press release, no dramatic manifesto. Just a quiet return to the world with my reputation intact and receipts in hand. The website didn't scream. It declared. Under the hood, it ran on a custom framework I'd been building in silence for months. Efficient, hardened, signed, sealed, and locked with methods Dylan wouldn't understand if he had flashcards and a tutor. The clients would come. The referrals, the revenue, the recognition. That part always follows excellence. But what mattered most wasn't revenge or vindication. It was the principle that even in a world drunk on disruption and fake it till you make it, there's still quiet, lethal power in knowing your rights and documenting them before anyone knows you're in the room. Dylan didn't lose to my code. He lost to my clauses. To the fine print he never bothered reading, scribbled in black ink before he even joined the company. To the silence of a woman who'd been ignored long enough to become absolutely unmissable. I closed the laptop, let the Colorado sunshine warm my face through the window, and whispered like a prayer carved in granite. They skimmed the fine print. I wrote every single word. Epilogue. 6 months later, I'm running Blackstone Development from a restored Victorian house in Boulder's historic district. 15 employees, 7-figure revenue, clients who actually read contracts before signing them. Morrison Tech? They declared bankruptcy 4 months after Dylan's departure. The building's been converted into luxury condos. Dylan's LinkedIn profile now lists him as a digital transformation consultant. Last I heard, he was pitching a blockchain startup to investors who'd learned to Google his name first. Justice doesn't always wear a cape. Sometimes it just keeps perfect records and knows when to use them. The fine print, as it turns out, was never that fine. They just chose not to read it. Thanks for listening, folks. If you enjoyed this story of corporate justice, hit that subscribe button. Because somewhere out there, another Dylan is about to learn that the quiet ones are always watching, always documenting, and always ready to remind the world that intellectual property isn't just a suggestion, it's the law.